It was supposed to be a routine flight. The passengers sat quietly reading magazines or watching movies as snow gathered outside. For almost 2 hours, the only sounds were the soft murmurs of the cabin and the steady hum of the engines above. But high above the frozen ocean, the comfortable drone suddenly turned into a terrifying roar. The lights flickered wildly, and an ominous chime rang out in the cockpit. Outside, dark clouds swirled and ice spread across the wings. The pilots' faces were grim as they fought to regain control of the plane. But the ice was too strong. Branches hit the windows, the engines whined, and the plane lurched violently before dropping from the sky. Screams filled the cabin as the passengers tumbled forward. The dark, frozen sea rushed closer and closer. And then impact. Luggage flew through the air. Metal screeched and glass shattered as the aircraft slammed into the ice. The world turned upside down. People cried out in terror as the fuselage was torn across the frozen surface before finally coming to a stop, broken and on its side. The plane coughed out smoke and the smell of jet fuel filled the air. The survivors gasped for air, shivering in the blizzard, their breath turning to mist in the freezing wind. They struggled to open the emergency exits, their hands clumsy with cold. Finally, the wounded passengers stumbled out onto the ice, pulling life rafts and torn bags with them. Some were injured, others dazed, but all of them knew that they had to move. The frigid wind whipped across the barren landscape, carrying with it the haunting moan of the wind. But there was no time to take in the surroundings. Each step was a gamble, every movement a risk. The ice groaned under their weight, and with each footfall, more cracks spread across the frozen surface. And then, far off in the distance, something stirred beneath the black water. A fin sliced through the icy waves. It was circling. Terrified, the passengers huddled together. They had survived the crash, but now they were trapped on a drifting sheet of ice in the middle of a frozen sea, surrounded by hungry predators. Then from below, the shark slammed against the ice shelf, shaking the ground with its powerful tail. People fell down, grabbing at each other to prevent themselves from sliding into the churning water. Its powerful jaws opened, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth, promising a quick and painful death. One of the survivors desperately waved his arms, trying to attract the attention of the others. His eyes wide with fear, his voice hoarse with cold, mouthed the words "get inside," urging everyone to flee back to the wreckage. But as they moved, the ice cracked. And with another mighty splash, the shark surged from the water, its eyes fixed on the terrified passengers. Scrambling back to the wreckage, the passengers clawed at each other in their desperate bid to escape the predator. They needed a beacon, something to scare the shark away. And then, someone remembered the flares. Someone crawled back across the treacherous ice towards the wreckage. The ice groaned ominously, threatening to give way beneath him. The shark circled, sensing easy prey. The man slid back, just managing to scramble onto the life raft with the flare kit clutched tightly in his hand. He quickly distributed the flares to the other survivors, their hands numb and clumsy. Then one of the passengers fired a flare. Red light cut through the frozen night, momentarily banishing the darkness and driving the beast away. The survivors huddled together, freezing, exhausted, hoping that the red light would be enough to keep the shark away. They waited for what felt like an eternity, and then they heard it. Through the roar of the wind and the pounding of their hearts, they heard the faint sound of rotor blades. Hope surged through them. Rescue was here. The helicopter appeared through the swirling snow, a beacon of salvation. The pilot skillfully maneuvered the chopper, lowering a rope ladder to the survivors. One by one, the passengers were pulled to safety, shivering and exhausted. As the last survivor was lifted away, the ice shattered behind them. The shark circled one last time before vanishing beneath the frozen sea. The wreckage was swallowed by the black water, disappearing into the icy depths. All seemed lost until a miracle occurred. The passengers, battered and bruised, were taken off the ice and wrapped in warm blankets. As they were brought inside, they looked back at the frozen sea, wondering how they had managed to survive such a horrifying ordeal. They shared their stories, each telling a different part of the terrifying tale. Together, they recounted the chilling moment when the shark attacked, its cold, unblinking eyes staring into their souls as it circled, waiting for them to weaken. There were moments when hope had dwindled, when the harsh reality of their situation had sunk in. They were stranded on a drifting sheet of ice, surrounded by hungry predators with little hope of rescue. Yet somehow, they had endured. As days turned into nights, the survivors stayed together, drawing strength from their shared trauma. They supported each other, sharing stories, jokes, and memories of loved ones to keep their spirits up. They talked about their dreams and aspirations, clinging to the hope of a future that lay beyond this nightmare. Throughout the long, dark nights, they huddled together for warmth, finding comfort in their shared humanity. They played games to pass the time and lift their spirits, their laughter echoing faintly in the vast expanse of the ice cave. Even when despair threatened to consume them, they held on to each other, refusing to let go. They prayed, sang, and recited poetry, drawing upon their faith and beliefs to sustain them. And all the while they waited, hoping against hope for a rescue that seemed increasingly unlikely. But even in the darkest moments, there were glimmers of beauty. The northern lights danced across the night sky, a breathtaking display of colors that offered a momentary distraction from their grim reality. The survivors found solace in the natural wonders that surrounded them, drawing strength from the resilience of the natural world. As the sun finally broke through the clouds, casting a pale light on the ice cave, the survivors felt a surge of renewed hope. The natural cycle of day and night had been their constant companion during their ordeal, and now it offered a promise of a new beginning. The survivors emerged from the cave, blinking in the bright sunlight, their faces etched with the toll of their experience. They had survived the crash, the shark attack, and the unbearable weight, bound together by their shared trauma and unwavering spirit. The rescue operation was a testament to human resilience, a beacon of hope in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. The survivors, weak but determined, were transported to a nearby medical facility where they were met by teams of doctors and nurses ready to help them heal. As they were examined and treated, the full extent of their injuries became clear. Cuts, bruises, and fractures were tended to with care, but it was the emotional scars that ran deeper. The survivors grappled with the trauma of their experience, each reacting in their own way to the harrowing ordeal. In the days that followed, the survivors began to piece together the fragmented memories of the crash. They remembered the turbulence, the sickening feeling of the plane dropping, and the bone-jarring impact with the ice. The images replayed in their minds, causing fresh waves of panic and despair. The support of medical professionals and their fellow survivors helped them confront these haunting memories. Therapy sessions and group discussions provided a safe space for them to share their experiences, find solace, and begin the long process of healing. But the ordeal on the ice left an indelible mark on each survivor. They returned home forever changed by their experience. Some found it difficult to sleep, constantly on edge, expecting the worst at every turn. Others suffered from anxiety and depression, haunted by the memory of the shark and the feeling of helplessness they had experienced. The world seemed colder, harsher now, and the survivors struggled to find warmth and comfort in everyday life. Despite the challenges they faced, the survivors drew strength from the support of their families and friends. Their loved ones rallied around them, offering comfort, understanding, and unwavering support. The outpouring of love and care helped to alleviate some of their pain, reminding them that they were not alone in their struggle. Slowly but surely, the survivors began to rebuild their lives. They reconnected with old friends, finding solace in familiar faces and shared history. They also reached out to support groups, connecting with others who had endured similar traumas. Through these connections, they gained new perspectives, coping mechanisms, and a sense of community. As time passed, the survivors began to heal, both physically and emotionally. They learned to manage their injuries and the psychological scars that lingered. They started to find joy in small things, appreciating the warmth of the sun, the comfort of loved ones, and the beauty of the world around them. The survivors carried with them the memory of those they had lost, honoring their memory by living their lives to the fullest. They became advocates for safety measures, urging authorities to learn from the mistakes that had led to the crash. Their voices, though tinged with sadness, were powerful, driving calls for change and accountability. Years went by and the survivors grew older, yet the bond forged on that frozen sea remained unbroken. They gathered for annual reunions, reminiscing about their shared ordeal and celebrating their survival. These gatherings became a source of strength, a reminder of how far they had come, and a celebration of the resilience of the human spirit. Now, whenever they hear the sound of crashing waves or feel the icy touch of winter, the survivors are transported back to that fateful day. The memories may fade with time, but the scars remain, constant reminder of their brush with death and the enduring power of the human spirit.